In the year 2003, I was still in the United States Marine Corps, and I was on my first deployment for Operation Iraqi Freedom, and I'll never forget reading a sign at one of the camps right at the gate, and it stated, "Complacency kills." Now, I knew what that sign meant, but since it was right before the invasion, it really hit hard because lives were going to be on the line. And the thing is, in the job of policing, the principle behind it is no different. I know combat's different than policing, but in policing, you might have 100 traffic stops that go perfectly fine, but it's that 101st that could change everything. And if you're complacent, you could get yourself and or others hurt or worse, killed. My name is Scott Medlin. I'm a former police officer, now an author and national speaker on helping first responder form mental habits that help them prevail and overcome the inevitable stress and challenges that happen in the career, but also in life. And I had a subscriber ask a while ago about doing a video on complacency. And I can tell you right now, complacency is one of those things where you have to be careful of because nobody's immune from it. But what is complacency? Well, if you just Google it, like for a definition, complacency is a state of self-satisfaction, often with a lack of awareness regarding potential dangers or a need for improvement that stems from past success or comfort. Comfort is the big word I wanted to focus on because there's this phrase in law enforcement that I can't stand, and I think it needs to be wiped out of the vocabulary entirely, and that is the word routine. Like the phrase routine traffic stop or routine domestic, routine alarm call. There can be no such thing because if you fall for that word routine, that's a very dangerous mindset. And I remember sometimes I got a little bit thrown back for a little split second because things seemed to be normal and all of a sudden they weren't. Like I went to a house one time because of an alarm. I thought, is this going to be another false alarm? And I'm walking up to the front door and I look up and that sucker is wide open because it's been kicked in. And for all I know, they could have been looking right at. But turns out the suspects had already left after taking some things out of the house. But it was that split moment of just, oh shoot, this house has actually been broken into. Or a time when you make a traffic stop based on a minor equipment violation and the driver of the car ends up running as fast as they can to get away. If you're complacent and not prepared for anything, then it slows down your reaction. But never get in the habit of speaking or believing routine. Because getting comfortable and fueling complacency can lead to bad habits, which these bad habits don't form overnight, but they are easy to form and harder to break. Whereas good habits are harder to form, but easy to break, so we have to work on our habits. But when it comes to bad habits that fuel complacency, some of them in law enforcement are not checking a building and or house when you get dispatched to an alarm, particularly if it's like your second or third time going to this place and all of a sudden it's that one time it happened to actually be broken into. I know of an officer where that happened. That was not good, obviously. There can be the bad habit of assuming cooperation from a suspect because you know the person or we're cool. Here's a little tangent. I know of some police officers who think I won't have to fight anybody ever because I can talk to people. I know many officers who could talk to people well. And unfortunately, the suspects got combative. Officers, if you're not careful, can get lax on vehicle searches and you might miss something that's evidence to a crime. One of the most dangerous habits can be when an officer is complacent about searching someone from head to toe when they are legally justified in doing so, such as after they've arrested somebody, they can search that person. If you don't do it head to toe and take your time and it's just another search and we're going to make it really quick, that's when stuff gets missed. There could be the bad habit of walking in front of suspects after they are handcuffed, particularly if you have the handcuffs up front to which suspects are supposed to be handcuffed in the back. Now look, I am guilty of this one. There could be leaning on cars or leaning into cars during traffic stops, not taking check welfare calls or domestics seriously just because I've been to this address before. Here we go again, assuming it's minor when in fact something major has happened. These are just all different bad habits. And yes, there's more, but I felt like bringing them to your attention. Now, I must bring up this point. You obviously don't want to be complacent, but you don't want to swing too far to the other side and be so hypervigilant that you're reacting rather than responding. Because when you're so hypervigilant, you're reacting based on what might occur, not what is actually occurring. And police officers have to react based on what is occurring, not what you formulated in your head. You can run scenarios through your mind and be ready for anything. But the thing is, there has to be a balance between that complacency and hypervigilance. There has to be tactical awareness. There has to be calmness. But how do you maintain that? How do you build it? How do you maintain it? You have to train, bottom line. And in particular, scenario-based training is the way to go. And this is scenario-based training from case law all the way to defensive tactics to firearms training. Everything, every bit of training I had, the best training I got was through scenario-based training. But what I realized was a lot of the training that Law enforcement did. It was just once a year for skills that were very perishable. And I didn't really like that. So I took it upon myself to train jujitsu, Krav Maga, boxing, and some other things. But I also trained in verbal judo through videos and reading the book Verbal Judo. Officers and I would discuss scenarios about how to handle things legally. And it was the best decision I made because you can't rely on department training, in my opinion. Many do not do it enough. It's just check the box training. Okay, tangent over on that. I knew that at some point I was going to have to control and restrain somebody, particularly when they tried to resist being placed under arrest. And it's almost like the body can't go where the mind hasn't been before. And this is what can set you up for panic. Like prior to going into law enforcement, I was training jujitsu because I knew I'd be in law enforcement and I knew I would have to control someone. And whenever I did finally have to use use of force as a last means, I was able to do it effectively rather than panic because I had never been in a fight before. My point being, training makes you steady, not panic. Training makes you aware and able. Training makes you capable. And training fights complacency. It helps you to be able to respond. To which I want to make the point, if I haven't kind of indirectly already made it, you can get complacent on your training. Every skill in law enforcement is perishable. Don't get complacent based on past success or comfort like the formal definition said. There's always room to grow, learn, and train in law enforcement. You're never going to know it all. You got to keep your skills up. It's totally worth it. And I want to say that I've received comments on my YouTube channel that people wish cops would be real and understand the job is not as dangerous as other jobs. I know that statistically, yeah, there are other jobs that are more dangerous, but there's no room for complacency in the sense of law because I unfortunately know 2 police officers who were shot and killed in the line of duty. I, during my career, was kicked, was slapped. I know 2 officers who had to use deadly force, one because he had someone running at him with a knife, another because he responded where there was a man who was shooting up the hospital and the officer had to use deadly force. I'm just saying, there are people out there who think policing's not that dangerous. I read something on CBS the other day that statistically officer ambushes are on the rise. Complacency is very dangerous. And remember, nobody's immune to it. You have to have a level of awareness and the willingness to train. And complacency can get you hurt and or killed, but also other people as well.